Imagine this: New York City. Summer. Any summer. You know the smell. You've walked past a row of black garbage bags piled 6 feet high on Manhattan sidewalks in August heat. The bags are split at the seams. Liquid is pooling on the pavement. Flies are doing what flies do. Now, imagine this. You're standing in an apartment on Roosevelt Island, a narrow 2-mile strip of land sitting in the East River between Manhattan and Queens, home to about 14,000 people. You have a trash bag. You walk to the garbage chute on your floor. You drop it in, and it disappears. Not into a dumpster in the basement. Not into a pile on the curb. Not into a truck that will rumble past your window at 3 a.m. It gets sucked at 60 miles per hour through a network of underground tubes running beneath the entire island and delivered to a central facility blocks away, where it's automatically compacted and prepared for removal. No smell, no trucks, no bags on the sidewalk, no noise, just gone. This system has been running continuously beneath Roosevelt Island since 1975, and almost nobody outside of the island knows it exists. Believe it or not, New York City has been operating a pneumatic underground trash system for 50 years. And the reason every other city in the world didn't copy it is a story all by itself. Welcome to Believe It or Not, the show where weird is real and the truth is stranger than fiction. I'm your host, Bryan, and today's story is about a tiny island in New York City, a Swedish technology that was supposed to change urban living forever, and the gap between a brilliant idea and the messy reality of making it work at scale. This is the strange, surprisingly fascinating story of the city that hid its trash underground. And what happened next? To understand the underground trash system, you have to understand what Roosevelt Island was supposed to be. In the early 1970s, the island, then called Welfare Island, a name that reflected its history as the location of a prison, an asylum, a smallpox hospital, and various other institutions nobody wanted in Manhattan proper. The island was essentially abandoned. Most of its buildings were empty and decaying. Access from Manhattan was limited to a single elevator in the Queensboro Bridge. Then, New York State decided it wanted to reinvent it completely. The vision was ambitious. A planned, mixed-income, residential community designed from scratch. A model city of the future, built on progressive urban planning principles. No cars, clean streets, affordable housing alongside market-rate apartments, green spaces, a community that would demonstrate what thoughtful city design could look like. And central to that vision was a question that city planners had been quietly wrestling for decades. What if a city didn't have to deal with garbage trucks? The technology that answered that question didn't come from New York. It came from Sweden. In 1961, a Swedish company called NVAC installed the world's first pneumatic waste collection system in a hospital in a small town northeast of Stockholm. The concept was elegant. Instead of collecting waste manually and transporting it by vehicle, underground tubes would carry it automatically using air pressure, like a giant vacuum cleaner running beneath the building. It worked beautifully, in controlled environments. So hospitals adopted it. Some residential buildings followed. By the late 1960s, The technology was being discussed seriously as a potential solution for entire urban neighborhoods. Now, at this point, in New York City, they were in the middle of a serious garbage crisis, with waste volumes growing faster than collection infrastructure could keep up with. And they were paying attention. When the master plan for Roosevelt Island was developed in the early 1970s, the pneumatic system was built into the design from the beginning, not as an optional feature, but as a core element of the entire community's infrastructure. The AVAC system, which means automated vacuum-assisted compacting, automatically starts up when sensors detect that garbage has reached a certain level, opens the valve, and sucks the garbage at 60 to 70 miles per hour through 20-inch underground tubes to the central facility. 50 years later, the system serves over 14,000 residents in more than 24 buildings. Here's the part that makes visitors to Roosevelt Island genuinely amazed. If you live on the island, your experience of taking out the trash is almost insultingly simple. You simply walk to the garbage chute on your floor. The same kind of chute you'd find in any high-rise building in New York. You open it, you drop in your bag. And that's it. Your involvement is over. The waste stays in an inlet until the sensor notes that the garbage has reached a certain level. Then the AVAC system automatically starts up, opens the valve, and sucks that garbage at 60 to 70 miles per hour through underground tubes to the central facility. There's no building staff collecting and bagging waste. No bins on the curb. No trucks stopping at every building. The garbage moves through the system automatically, is compacted at the central facility, and is then removed from the island by conventional trucks. But just once, from a single point, rather than from every building individually. During major disruptions like Hurricane Sandy and blizzards, trash collection continued uninterrupted on Roosevelt Island, even when street collection stopped in the rest of the city. While Manhattan was buried in uncollected garbage during some of the city's worst weather events, Roosevelt Island's underground system kept running without pause. Now here's the question that the Roosevelt Island story inevitably raises. If this works so well, why isn't it everywhere? Now the question is simple, but the answer is complicated. And more interesting than, it's too expensive, which is the easy answer people reach for first. You see, the fundamental problem is that the pneumatic trash system works brilliantly when they're designed into a community from the beginning. Roosevelt Island's system was built into the island's infrastructure before the residential buildings went up. The tubes, the valves, the central facility, all of it was planned and constructed as a single integrated project. Now, retrofitting the same system into an existing city is a completely different proposition. You'd have to dig up streets, reroute utilities, coordinate with dozens of building owners, and disrupt the daily functioning of neighborhoods for years. All to install infrastructure that most residents would barely notice once it was running. The Roosevelt Island system is one of only 2 functioning city-scale systems in the U.S. The other serves Disney World. Disney World, and a small island in the East River. 2 places that were designed from scratch with full control over their own infrastructure, by organizations with the resources and authority to build what they wanted. Every other city in the world looked at Roosevelt Island's system, nodded appreciatively, and went back to putting bags on the curb. There's something almost melancholy about the Roosevelt Island story when you sit down with it. The system works. After 50 years with regular maintenance and some modernization, it still does exactly what it was designed to do. The residents who live there experience daily life without one of the most persistent annoyances of urban experience. And most of them have stopped thinking about how unusual that is. But the vision that Roosevelt Island represented, a model for how cities could be designed differently, a proof of concept that other communities would study and replicate, largely didn't materialize. Not because the idea was wrong, because the world is already built. And rebuilding the world from scratch, block by block, to accommodate a better idea, that turns out to be one of the hardest problems of all. Not the engineering, not the cost, but the sheer momentum of the way things already are. You see, Roosevelt Island is a small, quiet reminder that sometimes a genuinely better solution exists. It's just buried underground, running perfectly, in a place most people will never live. Now, here are a few believe it or not facts I found while researching the podcast. Believe it or not, the pneumatic trash technology used on Roosevelt Island was invented in Sweden in 1961, originally for a single hospital, not an entire community. Today, the Swedish company Envac that installed the system has about 800 of these systems worldwide, mostly in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. The United States, which hosted one of the earliest large-scale urban versions, has barely expanded beyond the 2 locations it had in 1975. The country that proved the concept adopted it the least. Believe it or not, Disneyland, the only other location in the US using a comparable AVAC system, has taken a dramatically different approach, heavily investing in modernizing its system with trash monitoring sensors and optimized waste sorting. Disney has spent decades upgrading and improving its pneumatic trash infrastructure. On the other hand, Roosevelt Island's system has faced increasing criticism for breakdowns and maintenance gaps. The difference in outcome between the 2 American pneumatic systems is essentially the difference between an organization that treated the technology as an investment and one that treated it as infrastructure to be maintained on the minimum possible budget. Believe it or not, the island was called Welfare Island until 1973. Believe it or not, the island was called Welfare Island until 1973, named not for government assistance programs, but for its history as the location of a penitentiary, a lunatic asylum, a smallpox hospital, a charity hospital, and an almshouse. For most of its history, it was where New York City put the people and institutions it didn't want visible from the mainland. The transformation into a planned residential community, and the name change to Roosevelt Island, was a deliberate attempt to erase that history. The underground trash system, in a sense, was part of the same impulse. Hide the unpleasant things. Put them underground and out of sight. Believe it or not, the Roosevelt Island system processes approximately 6 tons of trash per day. Silently, invisibly, without a single garbage truck on the island's residential streets. In the same period, a comparable Manhattan neighborhood generates the same volume of waste, which requires multiple truck visits per week, produces significant noise and air pollution, and leaves bags on sidewalks for hours at a time. The 2 systems exist simultaneously, a few hundred meters apart, separated by a river. And finally, believe it or not, there is a persistent urban legend among Roosevelt Island residents about a mattress that once jammed the entire AVAC system, brought down by a single piece of furniture that someone tried to send through the trash chute. The engineers who run the system neither confirm nor deny the mattress story with any specificity, which means the mattress is either real or it's the kind of story a community creates to explain the mystery of what's going on inside the invisible infrastructure that runs beneath their feet. Either way, the mattress has become part of the island's mythology. Somewhere beneath Roosevelt Island, there may be a mattress. Nobody is entirely sure. Believe it or not. Now, it's time for a quick quiz. Let's test what you know. 3 questions, each one harder than the last. I say the question, you shout out the answers. Are you ready? Then let's get started. Question number 1. What does AVAC stand for? And what does the system do? The answer? Automated Vacuum Assisted Compacting. It sucks trash through underground tubes at 60 to 70 miles per hour, from apartment buildings to a central collection facility. Automatically. Question 2. The Roosevelt Island pneumatic system is one of only 2 city-scale systems in the United States. What is the other location? And why are they both significant? The answer? The most magical place on Earth, Disney World. Both locations are significant because they were designed from scratch, with the system built in from the beginning, which is why retrofitting the same technology into existing cities has proven so difficult. Lastly, question number 3. The pneumatic trash system technology was originally invented in which country and for what type of building? The answer? Sweden. And it was originally installed in a hospital in 1961, not a residential community. The Roosevelt Island system was one of the first attempts to scale it up to an entire urban neighborhood. Roosevelt Island has had a genuinely better solution to urban trash collection running beneath its streets for 50 years. Most cities looked at it, understood it, and kept putting bags on the curb anyway. So here's a question for you to think about. If a better way of doing something already exists, proven, working, available, what actually stops people from changing? Is it cost? Habit? Or the sheer difficulty of undoing what's already been built? And what does that tell us about how hard real change actually is, even when everyone agrees something better is possible? Now here's a reminder. If you're enjoying Believe It or Not, follow or subscribe wherever you listen, and share this episode with someone who lives in a city, which is most people, who all have garbage bags on their sidewalk, while a small island in the East River has been quietly doing things different for 50 years. Next time on Believe It or Not, it's 1958, Wichita, Kansas. 2 college students, brothers, are sitting in a class when a local landlord approaches them with an unusual proposition. She has a small building she can't rent. She thinks pizza might be a good business. She wants to know if they'd be interested. The problem? They know nothing about pizza. They've barely made pizza in their lives. They have no business plan, no restaurant experience, no money. What they do have is $600 borrowed from their mother, a second-hand rolling pin, and an idea for a name based entirely on the number of letters that fit on their sign. That name? Pizza Hut. And what those 2 brothers built from a 550 square foot former bar in Kansas? In a country where, at the time, pizza was still considered an exotic foreign food, is one of the most unlikely business stories in American history. You won't want to miss it. But before we go, one final thing. Every single day, residents of Roosevelt Island throw their trash into a chute and walk away without a second thought. The system does the rest. Silently, invisibly, exactly as designed. That invisibility is the whole point. And it's also, somehow, the saddest part of the story. The better the system works, the less anyone thinks about it. The less anyone thinks about it, the less anyone asks why the rest of the world hasn't built one. Until next time, keep wondering, keep learning, and remember, sometimes the truth is weirder than fiction.